No, thank you very much for agreeing to do this podcast with me. So it's just about getting inspirational stories of successful people like yourself, so we can share that and inspire others who are looking to do the same. So I particularly like your message, be brave, be bold, and be brilliant. So, so that's what we want to capture. So essentially, just wanted to um, basically cover a number of things. So if we can capture your story, sort of your background, where you've come from, your experiences, your education, and all of that. And then within that, we get to understand more about, what business means to you, your successes and failures, the highs and the lows, and also capture some lessons and tips that you can offer to those people who are looking to sort of go into business or do some things for themselves, sort of give them some mindset things and tips that can help them to actually grow. So that's the theme, and that's what we're trying to capture. So I obviously I follow you, and your story is quite inspiring. So it'll be good to capture that. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's great. No problem.
Yeah. So should we just pick it up from there? So first of all, just to capture your story, so if you can just walk us through your story and where you've been and to today. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Alex, thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I feel very privileged to be here, so thanks for that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can probably tell from my accent that I'm a northern girl, so I'm Mancunian by background, and I guess really in terms of my story, I grew up in a very normal working class family, if you like, in Manchester. I was the youngest of 3 daughters, so I've got 2 older sisters, and I was certainly the only one in the family to go to university at the time. So that was quite, a sort of sacrifice my parents to financially help me to go to university. So I feel very lucky and privileged to have done that. And I went to Leeds University, did an economics degree. This is a long time ago, right? Way back when. and I came out of university with a first class honours, please.
Wow, that's very good. Very good. At first.
Jeff Hurst, as they used to call it in my day. So I came out of university, and because I'd done an economics degree, it was quite a good degree to do because it was broad and it applied in business. And ironically, my very first proper job, may I say, was as a government economist in Whitehall. So when I graduated in '93, there was a recession on, which is not dissimilar to the situation we're facing now. And I originally wanted to stay north, but I was applying for hundreds of jobs, and even though I had a good degree, it was really difficult. So I eventually got accepted into the government economics service in Whitehall. So I had to move to London, and I classic northerner, and I said, I'll go for 2 years. That's the maximum. 2-3 years I'll stay in London. 25 years later, I'm still here in London. But I love it. I mean, I'm very proud of where I'm from in Manchester. My working class roots, all my family are there, and I go back a lot. And one of our businesses is based in Manchester now. But I love London. I like the contrast between my hometown of Manchester and kind of being down here. So I stayed in the government economic service for probably just over 2 years. And I realised that the grey cardigans of the civil service were not for me, were glamorous enough for me. So I jumped into travel at that point. So I've spent most of my career in the travel industry, some big brands that you'll recognise the names of. So Thomson in the old days, First Choice, TUI, Saga. So some big businesses, and essentially, I guess I worked my way up, if you like, over the years. So when I started, I was on a graduate scheme, worked, did things with that. And then I had the opportunity, I got itchy feet actually about 7 years into Thomson. And I just had this feeling that I loved what I did, but I needed to branch out, because otherwise I could have been there forever. I loved it so much, but I knew deep down there was more in me. And I knew ultimately I wanted to become a CEO and to lead a business, a big business. So opportunity to go over to Spain to live in Barcelona for a year to sort out some problematic businesses for TUI. So I went over there and ran businesses for the 12 months, got them sorted out, came back to the UK, and then I joined Thomas Cook actually as head of product. And at that point, I was, it was an interesting time. I mean, obviously, Thomas Cook since has unfortunately gone into bankruptcy, into administration, which is a great shame, because it's one of the best known brands in travel with such a long heritage. But at the time, Thomas Cook were going through a rebrand. They'd relocated the business to Peterborough, ironically. So there was a lot to do in terms of how I could make an impact. So that. And then I got nominated for an award, an industry award, which at the time was Young Businesswoman of the Year. And I like the young bit, right? You had to be under 35 at the time. And I got this award, which was brilliant. And then immediately I got poached by First Choice. I got headhunted to go and join First Choice. So I did that and that was a board position, product director. And then from there, First Choice merged with TUI to become TUI Travel. And I had a decision again to make. Do I continue doing the role I'm doing, but with a bigger business, but a functional director role? Or do I want to branch out? And remember, I always had this aspiration to be a CEO. So I thought, time to branch out. And I got approached to go and work in Russia.
Wow.
So at the time, TUI had decided strategically to expand into what we call the emerging markets, and Russia was the first market. So I got approached to go and run that whole operation, and that was exciting, scary all at once. But it involved buying 3 businesses, so some mergers and acquisitions side of it. It involved running those businesses, and also then deciding how we were going to grow and shape those businesses into the future. So it was a really fascinating time. Obviously, a different business environment, different language, different culture, which was an interesting time in my career. And then from there, I then got promoted to become the managing director of the emerging markets. So at that point, I ran and bought big businesses in China, India, Brazil, had the businesses in Russia and Ukraine as well. So quite an international role, which was fantastic. So that was probably about 6-year period, I would say. And then I got approached to join another travel company called Saga to run their travel division, which was 4 different businesses, quite a big operation, 1,700 people in the team. Which was great. And then I decided that I wanted a bit of a change of career, to jump out of the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world. And this is where you and I have met, Alex. So I now have 3 different businesses, my own businesses, one of which is our property business with my partner, Chris. I then have a mentoring business, and then I also do a lot of advisory work on mergers and acquisitions. So that's where I am today. Quite a journey.
Wow, it's been quite a colorful journey. Yes, you almost have experienced every little bit you can experience in business, isn't it? Across all your experiences, going to Barcelona and Russia and all the global things. So you've got a very broad global understanding of business, isn't it? Which is really good. So I mean, throughout all this period, obviously you mentioned that you had at the back of your mind that you wanted to be entrepreneurial and do something that was that was for you. I mean, would you put it to any specific particular event that eventually made you to do the jump? Because everything else seems to have been going okay in the corporate world.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of evolved really, Alex, over time. So when I decided to leave Saga, you know, I thought at that time I would probably go and do another big CEO role. So I guess the first thing in my mind was I wanted to run a business. Didn't have to run a business, but I wanted to run a business. I wanted to take that leadership role. So in my corporate career, I was kind of leading up to that, if you like.
Yeah.
When I decided to come out of the corporate world, I was 46 at the time, sort of mid 40s, and I just, you know, I've really enjoyed my career, I really have, but I think now what I want is more flexibility in my life. I want to be in control of my own destiny.
Yeah.
I also wanted to create multiple streams of income, which is a term that we talk about a lot in our world, isn't it? I wanted to create sort of like a long-term legacy as well in terms of property and the assets. So it's sort of emerged over time, you know, and it was only with giving myself some headspace to think that became clear. And what I would say is as well, when you start down that journey, initially I was focusing on my board advisory work and the property business, but what has then happened as you meet interesting people or you educate yourself more, other opportunities come along as well. So that's definitely been the case for me, I would say.
Yeah. Wow. Is there any particular thing that you would say you miss from the corporate world, or what would you say are the key differences between the corporate world and the entrepreneurial side of things?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think very often people speak in terms of corporate being good or bad, or entrepreneurial being good or bad, and I don't really see it like that. I think there are interesting aspects of both. Cons of both those worlds. I mean, sometimes I miss the structure, the organization, the resources that you have available in the corporate space, you know, because if you have a big brand that you work for, you know, you'll have your PA, you'll have your IT department, you'll have your marketing team, you know, and a lot of people that you can rely on. So sometimes it's that. But in the entrepreneurial world, you're much more in control of your own destiny. You can make things much faster. You know, you can be very agile to adapt to opportunities, which is great. You can be more creative. So there's pros and cons, and I think when I was in the corporate world, you always had to be a little bit careful about your external position in the world. So you're cautious about what you would talk about on social media, because you're representing the brand. And like a listed company, you know, Saga is a FTSE 250, TUI was a FTSE 100 company, so you've got shareholders and the city you have to comply with, so that restricts you a little bit, and you can, you know, sometimes be caught in that trap, whereas in the space I'm in now, I can do what I want, essentially, you know, because it's up to me.
Absolutely.
So there's pros and cons. It really is.
But and then when you're looking at that, if you let's say someone is thinking of the same, you know, maybe making it on their own in business or whatever, for you picked, you know, the pieces where you do advisory and mentoring and all that, and property as well. What are the things that you had to take into consideration to come to a decision of what it is that you can do?
Yeah, I think with this, it's. I mean, the advice I would give to people is really give yourself some time to think about all of the skills and experience that you have so far. Because, you know, over a course of however many years, everyone has picked up either specific expertise in a certain area, or they might be brilliant at negotiating, or, you know, whatever it might be. So I would definitely think, for anyone that's thinking about a transition, it's worth reflecting on what you're good at already, but importantly, what you enjoy, because you might be really great at something, but you might not really have enjoyed it. You're making a transition to be more in control of your own business, career, life, whatever it might be. Why spend time doing something that you don't really enjoy? So follow a passion, I think, is good. To find something that plays to your skills, that fills any unfulfilled gaps. You might be frustrated around you've never had the opportunity to, I don't know, be more creative, for example. But that combination of build on the skills you have, fulfill any gaps that you really want to do, but you've never had the opportunity, or you've not been brave enough to do it for whatever reason, combine passion and do something you love. And I think that is the magic formula when you're in that transition, would be my opinion.
Because essentially you're making your vocation your vacation, isn't it? Because working then doesn't become like work. It's like you're just merging everything into one. Your passion and your profession, your vacation and your vacation, all into one.
Yeah, I think that's right, Alex, actually. And this can be a good thing. It can also be a bit of a curse as well, because what you tend to find is that when you're running your own business, sometimes you don't stop. The weekends are less defined. Whereas when you're doing more of a job, okay, you might have to work outside of the normal hours, but there's much of a definition between your work life and your personal life. So there's an advantage of that, because you have chance to turn off and be present with your family and doing some personal stuff. But equally, you're more entrepreneurial. You've got all this flexibility, and you do what you love. So therefore, as you say, your kind of work and life and passion becomes intertwined. The outside of that is sometimes that you just don't give yourself the break from business because it's so interwoven. So you kind of have to try and strike some form of balance that's right for you, I think.
So do you say discipline becomes even more key, so that you actually discipline yourself to separate that time when you're actually working, and also because some of the impact can actually be felt with family, for example, because if you're just all over the place, maybe you can't distinguish that particular time that you should be spending with your loved ones, because everything is just merged into one. So discipline, I guess, becomes quite key. Yeah, would you agree?
Yeah, I do actually, Alex, and it's ironic, isn't it? Because sometimes people leave their job or a corporate or whatever sort of business they've been in before, where they've not been their own boss, because they crave flexibility and the freedom. And then when you get the flexibility and the freedom, sometimes you go, God, where do I start? I need more structure. So again, finding this right blend, I think, that is for you. And I think it's also important to understand your own energy flows as well, because the joy of being free and having the flexibility to choose when you work, who you work with, and how you work means that your working day might start at 2 PM and go through to midnight, or your working day might start at 5 AM and go till 2 PM, or any permutation in between. So I think the key really is understanding almost where your energy is the highest, your important, sort of tasks into that time, but equally making sure that you're not just constantly working, and that you are compartmentalizing your diary a little bit, so you've got structure and discipline, so that you do get time with the family, you do get time to exercise or whatever's important to you, because sometimes it can be all consuming, and before you know it, you've not sat down for dinner as a family for a couple of evenings, and then your wife or your husband is pissed off with you, or what I mean? You have to try and catch yourself if you find that you're totally having that personal time. So I think compartmentalize your day, but with the flexibility that works for you, is it, I would say.
Yeah, because I think one of the differences as well is probably the amount of energy and motivation that comes into play, because you're doing your own thing, it's your legacy, everything, is 100% you. I think it gives you a bit of more renewed energy and passion and motivation. So that's why you can probably get to do a lot more and a lot more things. You're just buzzing. But in the corporate world, sometimes when it's a gloomy, rainy morning, Monday morning, you don't feel like waking up at all to go to the office. But if it's your own thing, you might be looking forward to, that mentorship call, the value that you're going to give to someone, and that conversation, or the next property deal, and that's happening. So you've got a lot more buzz and energy. I think that's one of the key differences. Would you say?
Oh yeah, 100% agree. And I think it's also who you spend your time with as well, because when you're in the, if you're working for somebody else, or you're working in a corporate or whatever business it is that's not your own, you don't always have full choice of who you do business with, and you don't always have full choice of who your colleagues are and things like that. Whereas actually when it's your own business, you choose who you want to work with. If you don't like the look of someone, or you don't quite get on, you can just say, well, I'm not going to do business with you. I don't have to. I've earned the right to choose. So I think also who you spend time with, who you do business with, can really influence you in a positive or a negative way. So, to make those choices in a sensible way, I think is really great to be able to do that. And I think as well, almost like the entrepreneur curse, if you like, is that we're very creative. We're always coming up with great ideas. And not all those ideas are going to work. That's fine. But sometimes you will get people in your life that maybe, it's not that they're negative as such, but they maybe don't fully support what you're doing, or they don't understand it, or they're very risk averse, or they're worried for what you're doing. So it normally comes from a position of love, 9 times out of 10. But equally, if you spend too much time with those type of people as an entrepreneur, it can really dampen your spirits, or you might not follow your dreams because someone is kind of putting those blockers and negative thoughts in your mind. So I think that's something to really be aware of. And sometimes that can be people close to you, it can be family or friends as well. So it's not you turn your back on them, but I think you try and maybe limit the amount of time you spend with those kind of people, or you just agree not to discuss certain aspects with them because they're going to discourage you sometimes.
Wow, that's a good point to pick up on, actually. I mean, what do you think is the role of mindset in all of this? Then, because that, from what you're saying, that seems to be quite a crucial thing in everything that you do. Having the right mindset and also aligning yourself with people similar. So, what would you say is the role of mindset?
I mean, I think mindset is everything, to be honest, Alex. It's absolutely key. And especially when you're trying to decide what you're going to do next, or you might be at a crossroads, or feeling a bit unsure because you're moving from one world to the next, and that can feel quite daunting and quite nerve-wracking. So I think have the right mindset is a real key thing. I mean, it's something that I talk about a lot with my mentee clients, and in particular, self-belief, I think is probably what, I mean, mindset is such a massive topic, there's so many books you can read on mindset, and they come from slightly different angles. But for me, I think one of the common themes that comes up a lot is this lack of self-belief. We all have these little gremlins in our head that can sometimes, a voice that says, oh, you can't do it, or you don't fit in. This whole imposter syndrome is something that I have personally struggled with most of my life, and I work really hard on that myself. So if you're not aware of that, so I think the first thing is being quite self-aware about it. And I think it's proven that most of our responses as an adult are normally formed from what happened in our childhood between the ages of 0 and 7. And that doesn't mean you've had a bad childhood. You could have had a fantastic, I had a great childhood. You know, I was incredibly lucky to have the parents I had and my sisters. I felt very loved, but nonetheless, being the youngest of three girls, sometimes I didn't feel good enough. You know, I was striving for attention, and look at me. That imposter syndrome has definitely stayed with me through my career. So I have to work on that all the time to say I am good enough. I do deserve a place at the table, you know. That mindset is such a key area for all of us. You know, for other people, it might be that, I don't know, they don't have great relationships. You know, maybe they don't deserve that they're good enough to be loved. So therefore, they kind of repel and reject anyone that gets close to them. So it's a fascinating area, isn't it? And, you know, I think self-belief in particular in business, one where you need to try and recognize when those imposter syndrome kicks in, for example. Just observe it, go, I know what's happening here, I know where it comes from, but I'm very calmly going to choose a different course of action than what my gut instinct is telling me to do. And just being able to sort of select your decisions and your thoughts in the same way as you select your clothes every day, almost.
Yeah, wow. But I guess some people would say, is that something that's easier said than done? Because someone who is in a particular negative mindset, it may be very difficult for them to actually pull themselves out of it. I guess you could say that's where part of being part of either a mastermind or mentorship, that you can have other people actually help you to come out of that, because it may be something that's difficult for a person to come out of it themselves in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, because, you know, even if you know what's happening, sometimes it's still difficult to make the change. And I think it's around replacing old habits with new habits, or, you know, old behaviors with new behaviors, and that takes routine. It takes repeated action to change natural response to certain situations. And yes, of course, you can do that on your own, but it's harder to do it on your own than if you've got a support network around you. And that support network, you know, it could be a partner or a friend that you have a safe and close relationship with, that will encourage and support you. But the advantage of having, say, someone like a coach or a mentor is that they're not so close to you, but they're there to care and to support you and to give you some fresh ways of thinking and some practical tools that you can use. And also to hold you to account and to make sure that you are making the progress, so you don't just fall back into old behavior. So I think that kind of combination of support, encouragement, love, with the accountability and kick up the backside when you need it, is a really good way to have that mindset and to help change your way of thinking or improve your way of thinking.
That's very good. That's really good to capture the importance of that, actually. Now, let's taking you back to your corporate world. What would you say were the highs and the lows in that world?
There's lots. We could be on for hours, Alex. I mean, listen, the highs were, for me, obviously the overall career progression was great, you know, because I always worked incredibly hard and I worked smart. So it gave me great satisfaction. As I said, I always wanted to prove something. to prove my worth, to prove that I'm good enough. And again, this comes back to the whole imposter syndrome and wanting to be loved and all that kind of thing. So I guess the career progression and the fact that I was successful was a high for me. I think not necessarily a low, but one of the things that was difficult for me was being a woman in business in that world, because I was nearly always the only woman in the boardroom with a P&L, with a commercial role. You know, you would very often find that, say, HR would be a female director. And listen, I'd like to see more male HR directors again, because that tends to be biased towards women and not men. But in the commercial space, difficult. So it wasn't a low, but it was definitely a challenge, I would say. You know, and then another highlight for me really was, I always enjoyed the cultural diversity of doing business in all different parts of the world. I'm fascinated by the nuances, shall we say, of, you know, why Russian people behave the way they do, or the way business is done in China, Asia, kind of part of the world where loss of face and respect is a massive thing, and how you can world needs to be different to be successful and to be respectful than when you're in a sort of Western European approach. So I always really enjoyed that variety and that cultural diversity. So I guess diversity for me is something that is really important to me, whether it's gender diversity, racial diversity, LGBT, you know, the whole range of and obviously there's topical coverage about that right now, but just diversity in general, I'm a big believer in. And it pisses me off that, you know, even today, there are only, you know, if you look at the FTSE 100 companies, 75% of them are led by men. And yet when coming out of university or higher education, it's 50-50 between men and women. So that just seems inherently wrong to me. You know, and in my industry, in the travel industry, it's only 6% women at the top. It's atrocious, you know. So so those sort of things are, and I guess that comes back to partly my values of fairness and everyone having the potential to be who they want to be given the freedom and the choice and the flexibility and the support that anyone can achieve anything. So I think a lot of it comes from that, to be honest, Alex. But
wow. So that means, have you found that it has been particularly harder to break through these barriers, being a woman? Like you have to work that extra harder to achieve or be where you've had to be, just simply from those injustices of either being a woman or something like that. How have you found it?
Yeah, I think in the world I was in, it was harder, to be honest. I never carried it around with a chip on my shoulder, you know, because I think sometimes women don't help themselves either. You know, so it's a combination of things that can be addressed in the organization, you know, around recruitment, retention of talent, development, role models, and it has to be a strategic priority. So there are things that the business needs to do to get more diversity, in particular at the senior levels. But equally, there are certain things that women need to do themselves as well to make sure they're in the best possible position. Because this isn't about men or women being better or worse than each other. It's about both can contribute in a really great way. Both are different, and that's the joy of it. You know, you get results when you have a diverse group of people, not just one way of thinking or one way of doing. So for me, it's a lot around, you know, the combination of what can the organization do and what can you do as an individual. So for me, there were times when it was tough. I always just worked on the basis that continue to believe in myself, do a good job, deliver the results, say what I'm going to do, treat people as I want to be treated myself, a woman, you know, and really try and be a bit of a champion for diversity, for gender diversity. It's a lot easier in the entrepreneurial space, I will say.
Yeah.
So if you think about entrepreneurial businesses, you tend to, it's more even. It's still not 50-50. It's more even. And I think partly that is because of the flexibility piece as well. So if you're if you're a working mum with, you know, childcare, you know, things to have to sort out on that side of things, it can be quite rigid in a corporate world that means sometimes you have to make a choice. Whereas in an entrepreneurial world, if you've got your own business, you can fit that around childcare commitments, family stuff going on. So you tend to find, I think, in the entrepreneurial space that you will get more of an even split between men and women and different kind of, you know, levels of cultural diversity.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, and I guess I mean, for me, sometimes it's also just like you said previously that we tend to be conditioned the way that we understand the world and the way we conduct ourselves on how we grew up or how we are raised and our experiences around that. So sometimes it may just be raising that awareness and education for people to understand that, you know, everyone is equal, everyone has got abilities that they can achieve, you know, everyone can be brave, bold, and brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, because sometimes you find people either in corporate structures or in business are behaving in a certain way, not because that their intentions are like that. It's because that's all they know, and that's how they've grown up, and that's what they've experienced. So it may be if you just raise a little bit of that awareness and you know, point them to some education or whatever, you can still effect change in a way in them, because they are receptive to that, but it's just that they know what they know, and that's what it is. Yeah. So yeah,
you're right. I mean, and that's really where role models come in, and not just tokenism, because sometimes you can find, you know, you might have one woman on the board or one black person on the board. Well, that's okay, that's great, you've got one, it's better than zero, but you know, you don't want to just be seen as doing the bare minimum. But if you actually have genuinely you know, more role models, because then people in more junior positions or at different stage of their career, they can see someone that kind of looks a bit, has a similar background to me, and wow, they're doing that. So that then becomes a potential option for them, and they can therefore see a pathway to how they could also achieve something similar. So I think it's a really, really key thing, actually, because if you can never identify anyone similar to yourself in those senior positions, it's very, you immediately think it's not possible when it absolutely is possible.
Wow. So quick fire question. I mean, how would you say that your values, you know, show up in your current work, the work that you do now?
I think it's in every way, really. So I'm fun. I like to have fun, and I'm very straight. So I'm a straight speaker. What you see is what you get with me, and that comes, you know, my parents have just been very grounded. So I think being fun, having a laugh, being very honest, very straight, and treat people the way that I would like to be treated myself, and that's just core from everything I do.
Yeah. Wow. Good. What makes you inspired then?
What inspires me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, well, my mum inspires me. So yeah, because she's a real trailblazer. She's 18, my mum, but even way back when, you know, before women were in business, she was very entrepreneurial in her early career. So she's very inspiring to me because she believes in me and tells me anything is possible. So that is great. But I think also what inspires me is being around sort of quite young, innovative people as well.
Good.
who are very, in particular in the technology space. I think there's a lot of innovation, and that makes me think differently rather than sort of just the traditional way. So I really enjoy spending time with innovative young entrepreneurs, startup businesses. I like that.
Good. Another question for you. Do you think there's because if you look at a lot of the successful people who are doing different things, they're the ones who tend to be like breaking out of the mold, and that's why you get a lot of successful people sort of going against the gradient. Yeah. Do you think there's a correlation between doing that, being someone of yourself, breaking the mold, going against the gradient, and success in business? Is that what it takes? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, in society, we're kind of indoctrinated to fit in, aren't we?
Yeah.
School, you fit into, what the curriculum is going to teach you. But when you actually look at really successful people or people that have made a big impact in the world, it is not the ones that do stand out from the crowd. A bit different, it's whether you are an artist or a musician or an entrepreneur. There's so many examples of where people that don't follow the norm can actually be really creative. Your Steve Jobs of this world, your Richard Bransons, your Vincent van Goghs, you know, Beethoven. All of these characters were very didn't fit in, actually fit into the norm, and therefore they were able to almost creatively see things that other people don't see. And if you think about Apple and the products that Apple created, if Steve Jobs had actually asked people to tell him what they needed, they would never have ended up with the iPhone, because you don't know what you need. So many examples. So I think you're right. I think standing out from the crowd, having a unique idea, you can create amazing things from that.
Yeah. Wow. So now just give us a bit more about now and the future, like what's happening now and what's your vision of the future. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in like 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, or what legacy you would like to leave?
Yeah, well, listen, for me, it's all about making an impact, really. And I want to be and continue to be a much more rounded businesswoman with not just one experience in one area. So for our businesses at the moment, I have 3 businesses. As I say, my advisory business, which is working on mainly mergers and acquisition strategy. I also then have my mentoring business, where I help other people achieve their potential. Property business. And I, as you know, Alex, I have recently announced I'm going to do a podcast as well. Brave, bold, brilliant podcast. So watch this space. So that idea of being able to help as many people as possible, being able to be a well-rounded businesswoman, multifaceted, and to have a strong voice in the world, I think is something that really inspires me. So I would love to be able to be moving into public speaking and being able to help as many people as possible. Obviously, within all of that, we want our businesses to grow. We've got ambitious plans for our property business as well, to really have a very big portfolio of properties over the next 5 years. So it's an exciting time. I am loving my life. I'm loving the people I spend time with. Like, getting the chance to sit and chat with you, Alex, is an absolute privilege. It really is. So that's kind of where I see myself.
That's brilliant, and for me, that's what I see. I can see, the color, the excitement, the motivation, the for looking forward to inspire other people, and the impact that you're making, which is really good, and it sort of comes up and is reflected in your well-being as well. Either physically and mentally as well. You can actually see how you're so bright and vibrant, and which is really, really good to see. Really good to see. So
Thank you,
that's
Alex. Very kind of you.
um, I saw something else on your side about being a judge on is it Every Woman in Travel?
Yes.
Give us a bit more on that one. What is that?
Yeah, so this is all about diversity, really, and encouraging, supporting women to achieve their careers and their potential. So
Yeah.
this organisation, Every Woman, was set up by two founders, Karen Gill and Maxine Benson, 20 years ago, because they saw there was a real problem of women not progressing their careers. So they set up this non-for-profit organisation, and they work in different sectors. Travel is one, which obviously where I've spent a lot of my career. They also have women in tech, which is again is a male-dominated environment, women in retail, etc. So as a judge on the Every Woman in Travel part of it, basically it's about showcasing talent, female talent within the industry, recognizing that through a sort of an award ceremony, if you like, and a process that you go through as a judge. I will judge those women, supporting them to progress to the next stage of their careers. So it's a pro bono. I do it for free because obviously I'm just passionate about it. Yeah, it's a great organisation. There's lots of resources actually as well online. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's just put in Every Woman as the website, and there's lots of really free content there to help women, progress their careers, and some tips and tricks, etc.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. Oh, cool. So what's your view, given the current global climate now with what's happened? What's your view of the future of the travel and hospitality industry, for example? Because obviously it's taken quite a hammering, isn't it, in the last few months?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Alex, it's probably the worst affected sector out of everything with the COVID scenario that we're working through. So, I mean, travel and tourism accounts for 10% of global GDP. It's a massive sector, and there are about 360 million people across the world work in travel. So the latest estimates are the impact of the current crisis is that 100 million people will lose their jobs in travel for this period. And that in the UK, that could be as high as 1.7 million people. So it's a really, really difficult time. It will come back, so unfortunately there's going to be a number of business failures, and we're already seeing that happen already, unfortunately. So it's all about those businesses that can conserve their cash. They can survive this period because these are businesses that have significant costs but zero revenue coming in, and that's the challenge, really. So my opinion is that it will take at least 3 years for the sector to come back to any size or shape of what it was last year. Longer term, though, people always want to travel. Freedom of movement, mobility of talent, mobility of people, whether it's a business or leisure, is a core part of what we're all about as human beings. The travel industry does a lot of good for the world as well in terms of alleviating poverty, etc. So the industry will come back, but I think it's going to take at least 3 to 4 years. There's going to be significant pain in the short term. And unfortunately, there will be quite a few business failures and people facing difficult financial positions. But longer term, it's a strong industry, but the shape of it will look very different, I think, coming out the other side. It's tough, very tough.
Wow. But does that present also opportunities for those people who are creative in order to actually help the struggling industry and either through entrepreneurship or other things?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm generally a positive person. I'll always look for the opportunities. So I think those businesses that survive, there will definitely be an opportunity for them to take a significant market share. So if you think about it, there'll be some businesses that will struggle. So if you're in a good position that you maybe you could buy that business probably at a lower price than you would do normally, to stop that business from going into receivership. So it's good for the business that's struggling, it helps it survive, and it's good for the business that's acquiring to actually, add it to the portfolio and grow. Those businesses which are able to pivot and to look after their customers, in my opinion, will be the ones that do well, because customers will remember that. You know, how you treat people in the tough times is almost more important than how you treat them when the times are good. So yeah, there will definitely be opportunities for sure. And you know what ends up happening in situations like this, Alex, is that you get new business models coming out, emerging. And I sit on a board of an organisation called the Founders Factory. And actually brings together large corporates with entrepreneurial startups and kind of incubator businesses. So I'm on that board, and what I'm seeing there is still a significant amount of innovation even now. And some of the new business models that are coming out from those startups in that travel space, they've got some brilliant ideas to just shake up the traditional way of doing things. So it forces innovation, I think, as well at times like this. So it's not all negative. There will be opportunities as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, moving on to the final part, the sort of advice that you would give to those budding entrepreneurs or people looking to have that particular edge in doing business. So, start off with entrepreneurs, either young people who have no clear in their mind what to do or what business they can set, and they're trying to understand what qualities are key that will make people successful in business. What would you say are the key qualities that would make people succeed in business?
Yeah, I think there's a few obvious ones that stand out for me, Alex. The first one is all about self-belief and mindset. You know, don't anyone tell you that you can't do something. You can absolutely do anything you want in life, 100%. Self-belief, you know, if you feel it here, then you do the best. So don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough or you can't do something. You really can achieve anything you want. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing I would say is surround yourself with the right people that will influence you in a positive way, lift you up. Will you as well, you know, it's not all about being all fluffy and nice, but they will push you to be a better version of yourself, and you're going to learn from and self-develop. And I think the other thing I would say is be creative about what those options could be, you know, because don't discount something too soon. Keep an open mind to opportunity, because things can evolve, you know, and you might start with one idea that then can become something really quite meaningful. So don't cut down opportunities too early. Keep an open mind and try some things. The fourth thing I would say is sort of the attitude to failure. Don't think of failure as failure. Think of it as learning, because most successful people, they don't win straight away. You know, normally they get to that position because they've had some successes, but they've normally had a lot of what you would classify as failures, but I would reframe that as learning experiences. So that's the four pieces of advice I would give to someone that's thinking about where do they want to take their careers or their businesses.
Yeah, that's very inspiring, actually, especially the one you're talking about failures. You know, some people can get discouraged. They start something and it doesn't go right. It's like, I'm not good enough. That's it. But if you take, I believe there's probably a seed of success in every failure. If you look hard enough. I think it was John DiMartino when he talks about values, where he says that everything that happens is actually neutral. You know, even for the things that you believe are like the worst thing that could have happened, you'll find that actually benefits or advantages if you stay long enough to look at the other side, the flip side of those things. So that's really great advice about failure as well. Not just taking it as the end, but look for the positive. Put it down to experience and move on and grow. So thank you very much for that. So I wanted to finish with a light-hearted this or that game for you.
Okay.
So I'll give you two things. You have to quickly pick which one describes you or which one you go for. Yeah, you ready?
I'm up for it.
Could be, let's say, cat or dog.
Dog.
Day or night.
Day.
Text message or phone call.
Phone call.
Summer or winter.
Summer.
Book or a movie.
Book.
Yeah, hesitated a little bit on that one.
I like them both.
Okay, comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Good. Singing or dancing?
Dancing.
A mobile phone or a computer?
Mobile.
And comedy or drama?
Drama.
Drama. Okay. Now the last one, last but not least, probably a more tricky one. Freedom or hope?
Oh gosh.
That's a tricky one, isn't it?
That's really hard.
You want to be free, but that hope can actually carry you forward as well in your vision. So
exactly.
One or the other. You can take both on this one.
I'll have both, please.
Jeanette, thank you very much for your advice and your story today. It's been quite inspiring story. You know, it's really good to capture these inspirational stories from people like yourself and the great advice that you've provided to our listeners as well. So to finish up, for people looking to find you or looking for more information, where can people find you?
Well, I'm everywhere really. So I'm all the social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So it's Jeanette Linfoot. I've also got a website, JeannetteLinfootAssociates.com, and I have a YouTube channel where all my videos and stuff sit as well. So just check that out. It's Jeanette Linfoot. So yeah, I'm all over the place, Alex. So please, anyone wants to get in touch, that'd be lovely to hear.
Brilliant. And I'm looking forward to your podcast as well, because you've got a inspiring stories to come out of that. So I'm looking forward to that, and good luck with that, because that's scheduled for end of July, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so I'm doing all the preparation as we speak. So yes, and Alex, I would love to interview you for my podcast as well.
That will be brilliant. Be an honor. Be a pleasure.
Excellent.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think we'll bring the cast to an end. But again, thank you very much, Jeanette, for coming on, and I'm sure we'll see you very soon. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Jeanette. Yes.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.